Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM, and if you're enjoying what you're seeing on the chat at the moment, how about giving this video a like, maybe subscribing to the channel to help us grow, and perhaps even check out our Patreon. Today I'm going to reveal to you my newest vehicle, and this is the most expensive vehicle in the shed. So Lawrie. Yes, Lawrie. Take it away. Okay, Lawrie. Yes, I know what you're all thinking, but just bear with me. This thing here is the Cyrusher Komoda, and it is an e-bike, and that is an electrically assisted bicycle, which means that the electric motor only works when you're doing the pedaling. And this gets around several weird laws in the UK about these things. I don't know what it is for the rest of you guys, but for us, there are various things, i.e. this thing can't give you power over 15 miles an hour or 25 kph and has to have a motor under a certain wattage to be a electric bicycle. Anything more, it becomes an electric motorbike and becomes an entirely different kettle of fish. Now, this really is the most expensive vehicle in the entirety of this shed, because this brand new will cost you 2,099 of your pounds. However, if you go onto the website right now, they're having a sale and it's now only 1,500 quid or thereabouts. So this means that this thing here, this tiny 35 kg bicycle, is more expensive than the fire engine, the digger, the other fire engine. In fact, it's more expensive than the other fire engine, the digger, the moggy and the tug combined. It's an awful lot of cost in a tiny little thing, isn't it? And I'll be honest with you, my first impressions of this are actually quite good. I think it really does stand out. I think it's actually very smart. Although it didn't start looking like this. To start off with, I had to build it. The assembly process wasn't quite as easy as I'd hoped, mostly because it's so epoxy heavy. Normally I'd just ripped open the box, but it says keep the box in case you need to send the thing back if there was something wrong. The instructions were fairly easy to follow, however, they weren't perfect. Particularly on the front wheel, the diagram had the order of nut, washer and shaft in the wrong order with the forks, which was misleading, so I had to go online to double check how to put the front wheel on, because I went, that's not right, and I was correct. The other major fault with the instructions, and it is a huge fault, is it doesn't give you any instructions at all on how to turn the bike on. And I know that sounds obvious, but I didn't realise, and once again had to go online and watch a video of somebody else to work out that there's a hidden button down here which powers up the computer. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything, it's just a heavy bike. And that's a massive flaw. There's also no documentation at all on how to use the trip computer itself, and that's actually a rather glaring absence from the box. So a quick run through of the electrical systems on the bike. Down here we have the on-off switch which you hold and that powers up the computer. Also we have the headlight control here and then an electric horn. Pressing up and down, that gives us our different modes, so normal, high and full power, and that will limit how much power it actually puts to you. And pushing a combination of button and up at the same time, that will take us into the second mode, which has a more detailed information screen on what we're doing. So it has a graph for our speed and a couple more bits of information. By pressing these again, that will cycle us back around to the other menu, and by pressing the bottom two, that will reset our trip. Those are all the controls, and all of that I had to find out myself. One thing I thought was brilliant though was that every single thing I needed to assemble this came in the box. Every single tool and a pump. I thought that was brilliant. I didn't need to go looking for everything. I have a full set of Allen keys, the necessary spanners, everything, and that massive kudos for that, because that was brilliant. Apart from that, what do you get? Well, you get one bicycle. It has front and rear disc brakes and these rather knobbly tyres, which give it the impression of being able to go off-road. It has working front and rear light, and most impressively, when it's on and I pull the brake lever, it has a brake light as well, and I think that's an absolutely wonderful touch. I genuinely like that. It's got a carrying thing on the back so you can take your luggage with you, and a fully adjustable seats with a load of marks on it so you can remember how tool you need to set it for yourself. There are pedals, and it's fitted with a 7-speed Shimano shift changer. So that's just on the back and gives you 7 gears. It's got fully working front suspension and rear suspension, which is that magic thing in the middle there. It has a stand, which you can see is in use at the moment, which is a really nifty thing, and all the wires go inside the frames here, and I think that's really, really nifty. It's also got a lock here, so unless you have the key, the battery is locked in, so when it's parked up somebody, nobody can come along and pinch your battery. And I think that's a very clever and well thought out bit of design. There's also a little charging port there, so you don't need to remove the battery to charge it. And again, I like that. It means there's no faffing around and I can just plug it in wherever I am. Or if you can't take the bike inside, you just take the battery out and then plug that in and charge it up. The Cyrusher Komoda is a step-through bike, which means it's this shape and doesn't have anything coming across here. Now, this is something I would normally associate with a lady's bike, so that you can wear a skirt or something and it doesn't get caught up over the frames. However, I quite look at it. It looks vaguely motor scooterish and actually makes it a lot easier to hop on and off for somebody who's unfit like me. The pedals have this cool feature where you push them in and then they turn 90 degrees, which means they fold up to take up less space. It has 2 pedals. It has 2 mudguards front and rear to stop stuff being sprayed up at you. It has 2 wheels which have little reflectors on them so you can be seen, and a handlebar with 2 brakes. It has 1 seat. And as you're probably guessing, I'm running out of things to say about it because I think I've covered everything unless I start counting the number of spokes on it. So the only thing to do really is to take it out for a ride and see what it would do. Now, the documentation that comes with it says it will do a maximum of 50 miles or 80 kilometers. So I wanted to put that to the test. I elected to take the bike to Rendlesham Forest because I knew there was a lot of nice cycling around there. However, it was a 15-mile journey, and in order to conserve the battery, I elected to go to Ipswich train station and take the train to the nearest station, making the journey an easy 6 miles and giving me some range to enjoy biking about in the forest. I had thought about driving and putting the bike on the carrier on the back of the car, but firstly, I wanted an adventure, and secondly, I wasn't actually sure how much the carrier can hold, and this bike is quite heavy, and thirdly, I don't have one that fits a Mini. My first challenge, though, was actually fitting the bike into the bike area on the train. Turns out this thing is actually quite large. And the second issue was there is a restraining strap to hold your bike in place. Because this is a step through, there's nowhere really to clip it on, and secondly, the bike is too heavy for the strap, so it will fall over and move about on its own, which meant I had to spend the whole trip standing next door to it, ready to catch it for that moment that it fell over. But sure enough, soon we arrived at Melton Station, a short 6-mile cycle away from Rendlesham Forest. So I hopped onto the bike and hit the road. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. When Cyrusher initially approached me, I was sceptical. Mostly because an electric bike isn't really the stuff we do on the channel, being all about old stuff and heritage. And most of you by now know my thoughts on electric vehicles. I was so dubious, in fact, that I actually emailed their head office and went, "Is this actually you guys?" And I was surprised when they went, "Yes, do you want the bike?" To which I went, "Yeah," because funnily enough, I do enjoy cycling. I don't do it much anymore because I spend most of my time sat in an office at the computer, hence the gut. But I've always fancied to go on one, so I was excited for it, and I thought I can do it just as a video taking the mick. I thought that would be good fun. But it turns out that this is actually far better than I ever thought it would be. This is actually really, really good. It's comfortable, and the way the motor just comes in is fantastic. Absolutely phenomenal. Because it's a bicycle, you have to keep pedaling, but it detects that you're pedaling and it adds the power to keep you traveling at the same speed. You have your options of how much you want it to assist. At the moment, I'm on full power, and it's maintained as a steady 25 kph, which is about 15 miles an hour. And I'm putting in next to no effort. Absolutely nothing, and it's just happily going along. It's great. Now, the fact, because I do have to pedal, also makes me feel like I'm doing something. I feel like I'm huffing to work. I'm huffing to do something to keep it going. and I'm a little bit not out of breath, but I can feel my legs are working. And for that, I'm really enjoying it. I think that's great. I feel like I'm doing something, although I don't have to. And in truth, I've already started using this between my home and where I edit. And being on this in the morning traffic is just as fast as driving. It's going to save me money because I'm not going to have to drive a car. And that I find very, very exciting. As mentioned, I used to really enjoy cycling. I used to do a fair bit of mountain biking before I got fat. And so I only really cycle on the roads if I'm going to work. So let's go and do this and see what this is like off-road. Because the most exciting thing about this is now I'm no longer on a public road, I can use the throttle. And this means I no longer have to cycle. Now, it's just an electric motorbike. And that is exciting because I can just trundle along these without having to worry at all. And if I do this, oh, this is superb. I don't really know how to review a bicycle. We can go through the simple stuff of how good are the brakes. Well, yeah, it stops. And then just put my hand down on the throttle and away it goes, like it would if it was a car or any other vehicle. Oh, this is just... I can't tell you guys how much I needed this. A day off of just going out, getting back to nature and just away from the computer. And this bike has allowed me to do this. And actually, this isn't just something I'm going to use for a review. This is something that I'm actually going to use and have been using in daily life. Because I think it's really actually very good and very enjoyable. This is a real way, in all seriousness, this is a great way to allow people who aren't as able as the rest of us to be able to get out on a bicycle and get out and experience the outdoors and do something different. Because to pedal this, you need next to no force. And then as soon as you're somewhere like this, I'm just asking it to do itself. I'm not pedaling, it's just doing its own thing, trundling along these little paths. And yeah, okay, I know I'm not really pushing it on a path like this, but I'm still really enjoying it. And it's quiet. There's no noise of being one of those guys on a motocross bike disturbing the peace for everybody else. I'm just wisping through the countryside. And actually, this is superb. Absolutely, magnificently superb. And it's not just something for people who are less able to be able to get them out so they can bike. For instance, the elderly, my mum, for instance, has taken a real interest in this. But also for people who aren't fit enough, like people like myself and who are less fit, who want to be able to get out but maybe not fit enough. This is a great stepping stone to getting out there, enjoying the wonders of cycling and getting out and doing something, because you don't have to do much, you just ride a bike. It's just a really, really good way to get out and about and do something different. Whoa. I do like the big, knobbly, grippy tyres on this. They aren't maybe a bit small, but I can live with a bit small. They do give plenty of grip. Like a couple of times I've been going a bit fast and felt them being on the edge, but for most of what I'm doing, they're overkill. They're more than enough. They're there for effect. This is a lovely way to go out and about and just be on a bicycle. See the world. Don't cause any stress, do it gently. Just be happy, I guess. Oh yeah, if you're still with me at this point, I'm glad you're still watching. This isn't as bad as people might think. This isn't as stupid, as daft, as awful. This is just nice.
And with that, I headed out into the forest. Eventually though, I began to tire of both heavy metal music and of electrically assisted cycling, having covered some 42 kilometres, and decided it was time to stop for lunch. And in the interest of taking this whole healthy lifestyle thing seriously, I'd packed myself a typical cyclist lunch of a packet of mixed nuts and a bottle of plain non-fizzy water. And as I sat, admiring the bike and enjoying my packet of plain, unsalted mixed nuts, I contemplated what I was going to do next. The bike had got 35% charge left and had done 42 kilometres. Now, when I arrived at Rendlesham, I'd use 15% of the charge. So if I enjoyed it for another 10% more of the battery and then began my journey back, I should arrive home with 5% left and a good idea of this thing's range. Spoiler alert, this is LMM, so best laid plans and all of that.
Now, things I really do enjoy are the fact that I have my adjustable suspension, so now that I've come off-road, I can really soften up the ride and make it a bit more smooth and enjoyable for me to be on it. Oh, this is just so good. All my misgivings with things that have been wrong or things I don't like, I instantly got rid of from the fact of it's just, it's so good to get outside. And as much as I do love the noise of an internal combustion or external combustion engine, to be able to just trundle through here with my thoughts, medicine for the soul and all that. And I know I shouldn't be this excited by a brand new vehicle. In fact, this is the first brand new vehicle that had done 0 mileage before I got it, that I've ever got into and having universal praise for it. I just think it's super. There are some things I'm not too fond of. This throttle, the fact that with the hand throttle here, I have some control. It's not as good as I'd like. The slowest I can do in top gear mode is 17 kilometers an hour, and then I can ask for a bit more and get to 20 and then full power and get us up. So it's variable, but not quite as much as I'd like. On the other hand, I can just ask it to go down to high mode, or let's go down to normal. And now I can just engage it at full power and we're sat at 17. So it depends very much what you want to do with it as we come. So if I'm on a more tricky bit of off-road, then I could just do this. So at normal mode, at full throttle, we're at 20. Let's slow it down and see what else we can do. So let's go back down to off. Right, and off. Oh my, I haven't done this. Oh, this is, core in top gear, this is hard work. You see, it is a very heavy thing. I told you earlier how much it weighs. Oh, you feel it. So, first mode. So I can do about 14 kilometers an hour. Let's go into eco. Right, eco and... So at full power in eco, we do 16. So let's go to the next gear, low. At full power, we do 18. Next gear to normal. And we will do, that's 20. High will take us up to 23. And then power takes us up to the max speed of 25. So actually between the different settings of power and the throttle, we can actually have a good amount of control. And actually that's pretty good. I am impressed. And what's funny, on this private road we're on, the limit is 15 miles an hour. And so we were doing that. I was doing the speed limit on an electric bike.
It was at this time, immediately having shot that last bit there, which I did immediately after lunch, that I saw the battery had plummeted to 16%. And so it was time to leave. And by the time I got out of the driveway and onto the road, things were looking even more bleak. Now, I was doing most of the pedalling myself with the bike on Eco Assist, the lowest setting where it's still sending power to the motor. This still helps, but I'd grown accustomed to the bike doing most of the work, and this was quite hard work. And despite the fact it was now on the most efficient mode bar turning it off, the remaining charge in the battery didn't last for long, and less than a mile down the road, it cut out completely.
No, come on. Oh my God, it's heavy. Well, today has been a day of firsts. A brand spanking new electric vehicle that I don't entirely detest. Taking an electric vehicle onto a train. Taking an electric bike for a ride in a forest. Having a day off, a bit of me time, and enjoying having a bike ride. And range anxiety. Being honest with you, did not enjoy the new experience of range anxiety. And it turns out, like all electric vehicles, when it gets to zero, it really means zero, and it just cuts out, which rather annoyingly was on that hill. The problem is that it's quite heavy because you've got all the extra electric gubbins on there, the motor, the battery, all of it. It's a heavy bike, and when you lose the assistance of that motor, you don't half feel it. It's a lot harder than just a traditional bicycle. Even with the little wheels, you're going, oh, that's hard work. Now, we have done, at the point of dying, precisely 50 kilometres. I'm fairly sure that the paperwork said that it would do 50 miles. Now, I might be wrong, and I might have said 50 kilometres, and I've got them mistaken, in which case, bang on exactly what it's meant to do. Isn't that incredible on a variety of terrains? If it's miles, however, it's not as bad as one might think, because this has been on maximum power mode the whole time. I have done very little work. The bike itself has done most of it. It's done most of the power and most of the work when we've been cycling, and when we've been off-road, it's done all of it itself. The big problem I have with this is how quickly it's discharged, and that is genuinely very disappointing. I was hoping for a brand new battery pack to at least have a decent idea of how much power I've got left so that I can actually plan my journey. The problem now is that I am a good 7 or so miles away from the station, and I am not fit enough to propel this thing on the uphill journey there. So there's only one thing to do, and that is to phone the cavalry.
And this, of course, made up my monthly quota of calls out to my friends over at the AA. Using the app, I tried to report my breakdown, but the options weren't sufficient, so I had to make a phone call. And having been held on hold for an infuriatingly long time, I was told that they weren't going to bring out the diesel generator that they do for Teslas and other things to charge up my bike, and that I had to just grin and bear it. So with that bad news, the only thing to do was to hop back on my bike. It turns out that when the battery dies, this thing is very heavy. Not only do you have the extra weight of the motor and the battery is also applying resistance, slowing you down, and the big tyres are also giving more resistance to the road. This turned out to be quite hard work. Hills that I'd roared up before at a steady 25 kph were now like cycling up Everest. Okay, so a slight exaggeration, but you get the gist. Though, as a fine specimen of man, I powered through. From films, I know that there are two kinds of people who live in big houses like this. Lovely people who will help you out, and those who will take you hostage to be used in some kind of horror film plot. But I really needed some battery, so I decided to risk it.
So I didn't die. It turned out that there was a nice lady living there who took pity on me and made me several cups of tea while this thing charged up. Now, this is one of the big problems. It takes a good 4 hours from this being empty to be fully charged. So I managed to get it about 50% before I said thank you very much and got on my way and went home, by which time it was almost dark. The headlights on this are actually pretty good, and cycling along in the dark isn't as terrifying as I thought it could be. Now, in terms of the range though, the bike claims that it will do 50 miles and I managed 50 kilometers, which is a long way short. However, I was using this on full power mode and using it off-road without me assisting it at all. If you have this on eco mode, which is the minimum amount of assist, I actually think it would assist you for that full 50 miles. And I spoke to Cyrusher about the battery gauge and the fact that it just dropped off the face of the earth, asking if maybe I had a defective battery. And their response was, nope, that's just how they are. The gauges aren't very good. So I guess that's about it. It's just You have to know what the kind of range is, which is a bit of a problem for people who are less mobile, like my mother, who, when the battery went flat, wouldn't be able to propel it along on her own. The other thing I found with it are these tyres, although very off-road looking and grippy, because the knobbles are actually quite in line, the angle of lean you have on this before you lose all traction is actually rather limited. I'm used to my previous bicycles going into corners and leaning quite hard because the tyre is very round. These aren't, and a couple of times I came close to coming off because I went too hard into a corner and it just doesn't cope. Also, the middle suspension on this doesn't seem to move. I don't know if I'm just not heavy enough to activate it. I can't see any adjustment on it, but to me this just feels like a hard-tail bike. I don't feel any suspension there. When I'm pedaling, I don't feel any of my pedaling being taken up by it. I don't feel the bike moving. If I go over a bumps or a jump, I don't feel the bike moving at all. It just stays there. So I don't know if mine's defective or if it doesn't move at all or if it's just meant to be like that. So I took this to my local bike shop to get them to give it a once over. And they went, well, the brakes are non-standard, the brake pads, the calipers themselves are non-standard, the tyres are non-standard. So when they go and wear out, I'm going to have trouble actually sorting them out. They also said, as a bicycle repair shop, they couldn't legally work on it. So for anything to be repaired on this that I can't do, it has to go to an e-bike shop. And the nearest one to me apparently is in Woodbridge, which means it's completely impractical to actually have it fixed. Now, on the subject of the range, if I do run out of battery, I can buy a spare battery and swap them out on the run. And that will set you back only 570 odd pounds on an already £2,000 bike. Now, I realise that in the grand scheme of things, for an e-bike, £2,000 isn't a lot, but it's another 25% of bike just to increase your range. And frankly, I don't think you need it. The other thing I really don't like is once I figured out how to use the computer, I can't change it from kph to miles an hour. Apparently cyclists do everything in kph anyway, but frankly I wanted miles an hour so I know how fast I'm going and the speed and distance I've done. That said, with all the negative things out of the way, so far I've done almost 200k on this, and I really like it. I would never have thought of getting one of these, but now I have it, I'm honestly using this almost daily, and I have lost a load of weight. A lot of you have commented that I've been putting on the pounds, because I spend most of my life now sat at a computer editing, and this has been the jumpstart I need. I cycle between where I live and where I edit now almost every day, unless I'm off the next day and leave the car. It's been brilliant because for my morning commute, this thing is genuinely as fast as driving, and the enjoyment of being able to zip off the line assisted by the electric motor and be faster than most of the cars is wonderful. And then the long uphill back home, this just makes a breeze off. But because I have to cycle when I'm on the road, I have to pedal, I feel like I'm doing something. It makes me actually work. It makes my heart rate elevate. It makes me feel better. And it's done wonders for my mental health and for my editing. When I get to my office, I feel ready to edit. And when I get home, I feel like all the stress of my day disappears. This is genuinely good. And as a result of this making me feel more healthy in biking, I actually want to do more with it. So I've actually taken it on further rides. I've even ridden it up here to the shed because I enjoy being out on it. I enjoy using it. And in all fairness, it's also for me, as part of this, has made me kickstart a bit of a healthier lifestyle. I've changed my diet because I've actually realised how unhealthy I was and I want to get better. So I'm eating better and I'm exercising. So this has been absolutely groundbreaking for me. This has changed my life, quite literally. And I think that's brilliant. It's certainly a lot of money to fork out, but in terms of saving, because I'm not using my car for at least 4 days a week, I'm saving a boatload in fuel because, as we know, internal combustion cars driving through towns, generally bad. This, it's saving me money and it's making me fitter. That's a win-win, and I'm enjoying it. Now, how it will last, I don't know. As I said, I've only done 200 kph. There are some weird things with it. For instance, if I cycle and take my hands off the handlebars, the whole thing starts shaking. So there's something not quite balanced in there. It's also got a weird rattle coming from the back end, and I don't know what that is. It could be the sign of something worse, or it could just be the sound of an electric motor. But all in all, I think it's actually very, very useful. I think it's great. So a massive thank you to Cyrusher for sending it to me. I'm genuinely very impressed with it. I think it's great. And frankly, honestly, I use it. I'm going to keep using it because, well, what else do you do with a bike? See you later, guys. Oh, and if you've enjoyed this one, how about clicking somewhere over there for another review of something, you know, internal combustion-y. Ta-ra!